Amazing. Thank you, Justine. Welcome, everyone. Hello. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Leah Verner. I am the Director of Strategic Schools Support here at EdVestors. Most of my role includes overseeing our Racial Equity Seed Fund. And prior to EdVestors, I was a longtime teacher in Boston Public Schools, math and science, for any math and science folks on the call, and also a community organizer. So today we have an amazing panel with us. I'm going to briefly introduce them, and then my colleague Shay, who is our manager of school-based investments, is going to throw their bios in the chat that has a little bit more information. Shay will also be helping today monitor the chat, so please feel free to put in your questions, comments for our panelists as we go along, and hopefully we will have 10 minutes at the end for Q&A from the audience. So our panel members today are Ben Helfat. So Ben is a former educator and founder of the Expeditionary Learning School for Community Leaders in Brooklyn, New York. And for the past 7 years, we have been lucky enough to have him in Boston as the principal at Boston Adult Technical Academy, also known as BADA. So BADA is an alternative public high school in Boston that serves students ages 19 and 22, many of whom are English language learners and new to the United States. Also from BADA, we have two brilliant scholars and student leaders with us today, Mariana Tobon Florez and Antonio Martinez. Not only are they excellent scholars, leaders, and advocates in their school community, but they really bring a unique international perspective, as Mariana is from Colombia and Antonio is from El Salvador, and they've only recently arrived to the United States. We also have Kristen Almquist, who is a longtime educator in the Boston area. She's also a former assistant principal at Chelsea High School. She's founded 3 career pathways and Chelsea High School's early college program. And we are also lucky to have her now at the Dearborn STEM Academy in Boston, where she's the director of early college and has built multiple early college partnership and STEM pathways. Last but certainly not least, we have Morgan Beckford, who is not only a multi-genre beautiful singer, she's also the chief programming officer at the Community Music Center of Boston and a supporter of many other art-based organizations in Massachusetts. So just a big thank you to all of our panelists with us today. We are going to jump right in. A couple quick housekeeping things. A reminder that in this room, there is simultaneous interpretation going on. So a reminder for myself and our panelists to please speak slowly so that our interpreter has time to translate into Spanish. Also, another reminder, if you have not done so, to please make sure you selected the right language, so English or Spanish. Everyone must select a channel. A reminder that we want you to engage in the chat, throw in your questions, comments. Shay will be picking out 1 and 2 at the end to ask our panelists. And then lastly, we suggest everyone puts in your view in speaker view so that you can have the best visual presentation. So that will allow you to see all of our awesome panelists on the call today. All right, our first question. We talked a lot about the pandemic and transformation and innovation throughout the pandemic years, and we've all had to adopt and make changes over those last 2 years. So my question for the panelists is, what new things and changes have you experienced in your school or done in your work over the last 2 years that you want to continue and make sure it doesn't get lost? And I'm going to start it off with Kristen.
I knew it. So hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I think this is a question that, like, as an early college director, and I'm not an in-classroom teacher, right? So I didn't have to pivot and adjust as quickly. Our programs may have gone online and things like that. But I think the one thing that we've held on to this year coming back that's been really great is that we're able to offer a variety of ways for students to access different opportunities, right? So there are some students that didn't do well with online virtual learning, but there are some students that thrived. And so through our early college partnerships, through some of our industry partners, students have a choice now, and they can kind of enter where they feel most comfortable. Which I think it has created incredible access for our students that are a little afraid to go on a college campus and sit in a classroom with a professor might be more comfortable going and doing a remote learning from their home or from their classroom, and are willing to kind of take that little leap, and really get a huge benefit from being able to do that from a place of comfortability. And the same is true for in-person as well. But I think it's, as educators, as people that develop and facilitate opportunities for students, it gave us new tools to give students access in more familiar and comfortable ways. And I think that's something we've sort of held on to. I know some of the colleges have allowed for different options for students to access higher ed. And a lot of our internships are now willing to do like remote internships, or because they have teams that work virtually. And I just think that that variety has really led to increased access that I hope to hold on to.
Thank you, Kristen. So hearing a lot of variety, flexibility, new tools. Ben, curious of your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, I think at the high school level, we sort of see a lot of actually what Kristen was speaking about, which is that as we thought about the pandemic, we actually opened up a lot of opportunities for some students who really needed it. It was very funny as we switched over to online learning. We didn't see a huge drop in attendance. We saw a different group of students attending. And I think that that was a big difference for us. And I think as we opened up the ability to work from where they are, our students who are often working, are often taking care of their children, are often taking care of their homes, needed that to access. So what really started to open up was things like really having access to doing more asynchronous work on Google Classroom. The one-to-one computing was something that Boston pushed really hard, and the pandemic really made that happen. And I think that just in general, how we outreach to students and how we have thought about conferencing is no longer in the classroom. I think the mindset of reaching out to students and families has changed in a way that is really productive. I think it's opened up a lot more opportunities that way.
Thank you, Ben. And Mariana and Antonio, I know you're sitting next to Ben. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that question as well.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hi, everyone. So, okay, for that question, so one thing that happened with the COVID and then like starting a new life, I was interested because even though that it happened everything with COVID and our lives changed a lot, so we had the opportunity to get the help from the teachers, so giving us advice, giving us help to continue doing our homework or continue doing our things to do. And I think it is easier. It is more easier because you can manage your own time. So it is more, it is more good to do our homework, to do our things that we had do, or assignments, or the credits that we need to get our school done. So I think that, I think that's the thing that I want to say. And doing it from home, it is hard because, I don't know, COVID was really, really weird, and it happened in just 1 second. So we had to change a lot of costumes. So I will say that.
Thank you, Mariana.
In my case, I will say about Google Classroom too, because Google Classroom is like a tool where we can do our homework really easier, and like online too, the classes online, because some students who needs like extra help and the teacher are able to teach them, to help them, they can like help them like online too, like us during the pandemic. Yeah.
So that more options for support is really important. Yeah.
Yes.
And Morgan, would love to hear your response as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so glad to be here and speak about this today. Apologies for my mask. Oh, I'm at work and we are still a mask zone, so here I am. When thinking about this question, I thought the response really filtered into 3 separate buckets for us. One was, things that changed. We really wanted to figure out not just how to deliver music programming, but how to support students with music. So reframing around how are we supporting our community? The second kind of bucket of changes we instituted is how do we support faculty to support students more effectively? And then lastly, how do we support our communities to support students more effectively? And some of the ways we're able to do that, I mean, we started as a settlement school in the South End 110 years ago. So we are a pretty traditional community music school. You can come take lessons, you can come be a part of ensembles. And we also have community programs where we send teaching artists into schools and community centers and hospitals to provide programming. So when we're looking at how we support students, we were in the midst of a strategic planning process anyway. So through the pandemic, we chose to just ride that wave. And we aligned our programmatic focus around social emotional development and cultural inclusion, which helped us kind of, explore the question, not what are we doing? Like what inputs do we have that makes the students sound better as musicians, but how are we teaching our students and how are we supporting their growth rather than focusing on proficiency? In addition to that, hybrid programming was a big hit for us. There are some students who just weren't ready to come back in person and take lessons with a group of people. So we kept and still have online programming as an option. And like to this day, we have students who say, I play flute, but my mom won't let me come to music school yet. So I'm glad that I can still participate online. Another aspect for students is we have had an opportunity through a number of grants to really beef up our youth workforce development. So for students who are interested in the arts world and learning what music instruction can do and what musical opportunities can do and where they can take you beyond the concert stage, we have opportunities for students to engage with us, to work some part-time hours doing everything from helping with events to working with the advancement team to speak to donors to, working with the program staff to help learn what are the sorts of reports and data that we consider and think about. And we've learned a lot from our students who have wanted to engage in that effort with us. It's really cool. Even for students who say, oh, I do these 15 things in clubs at schools that are so applicable to our work. I'm a part of my diversity, equity, and inclusion club at school. We talk about policies and school policies and how to make them more equitable for all students. We're like, man, we're having that conversation over here. Bring that brain over here. So I think it's a really beautiful thing. Then as far as supporting faculty, we've really beefed up our professional development budget also as part of the strategic plan. So telling faculty, we know there are resources out there. We know there are PD opportunities out there that focus on this content. We want to give you a hourly rate that makes sense for you to be able to go and participate in those opportunities. And what is the kind of rate that we need to set for that to be competitive with a music gig or a call. So lots of professional development. I'm really happy to report that our faculty have participated in over 180 hours of professional development after our fall orientation. That does not include the fall orientation. And lastly, to support communities, we've been spending a lot of time meeting with our partners to understand, what are the problems that they're trying to solve and challenges that they're trying to navigate, and how can we as an arts organization support them in navigating some of those challenges. So the conversation is turning from being about, do you want violin or cello, and for how many weeks and what time? But what are you hoping that this violin or cello program will do? Oh, you want your students to get really excited about this style of music. Could music production get us there? Could ukulele get us there? And involving the students kind of more in that conversation to make sure that we're serving them and their needs. So I said a lot of things, but at the end of the day, taking all of what we do and putting it on a student-centered lens or through a student-centered lens has, I think, been the thing over the past 2 years that's really changed our work for the better.
Thank you so much, Morgan. And that's a great segue into our next question. Some of the things I heard you saying is, switching that conversation to not just looking at proficiency, but how we're supporting student growth, how we're supporting staff growth, really focus on student-centered learning. And so I think that connects great to our next question. And I'm curious, I'm going to give you Mariana and Antonio, I'm most curious from you on this question, but what do you think makes a good school? So our keynote speakers talked about how we currently measure what makes a good school and how that often doesn't fully capture what school communities believe makes their school great. And so I'm curious, Mariana and Antonio, from you first, like how would you define a good school?
Okay, I'm gonna start. Okay. As you said before, I'm from Colombia, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about the experience on how it is the school there. So I know that we are here, but I was making a comparison between them, and it's really interesting because in our home country, it was really hard to find opportunities or to find that kind of support that we have here. So in our country, it is more hard to find, for example, to continuing studying or like continuing in a college or trying to find scholarships or trying to find like that kind of support that you sometimes need to go further or to do your things. So another thing that I will describe what makes a good school, it is about the flexibility and the support that every like teacher of the staffs makes to the students. So I'm talking about flexibility because even though that we have a lot of responsibilities or things to do, or even that we are in a new country, so we're having that kind of flexibility or support from the teachers and saying you can do this, you can find or you can follow your dreams doing that and doing this, so which is really, really good. So you find that kind of motivation, and that makes you feel like better, and that makes you follow all your dreams. And yeah, so, and another thing is motivation. I would say the motivation is really, really important because sometimes you don't have that kind of support or that person who tells you, okay, you can work in that. Okay, so we're trying to do this homework together. Or yeah, you can find more skills or, so it's more easy to get things done. It's more easier to try figure everything out, which is really good. So I will describe what makes a good school in those words.
Thank you, Mariana. So that flexibility, that support, that motivation, and I know we've talked about this before, but you've shared, that support comes with teachers really knowing you, knowing your experience, knowing your pathways, knowing where you're coming from, and knowing your interests, right? You have a lot of things to navigate, and so teachers who are really supporting you, that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Antonio, anything to add there?
Yeah, I wanna say something like related with what Mariana says about I'm from El Salvador, right? And there I wasn't able to to have a good education because in the place that I live, they couldn't teach me like a high level of education. If I wanna learn more, I have to travel a long way to keep studying. And also what make a good school for me here, I think is the support that the teacher gave us. Mm-hmm. And because it doesn't matter if the teacher don't have the responsibility to some teachers to teach some student, but even though they don't have that responsibility, they teach them if they are not the students. And another thing that I wanna say is that they care about what you wanna study in the future or what you wanna be, who you wanna be in the future. and they care about what you want to, if you want to go to college and if you want to like start a career, and they help you with that too. Yeah.
Thank you, Antonio. So that caring and knowing what your future dreams are, your goals, your aspirations, and it sounded like you were saying also this shared responsibility among the teachers in Bada. It's not, doesn't matter if it's not your teacher, right?
Yeah,
Everyone's there
that's
to
what
care
I'm
for
saying.
you. And I've actually experienced, if you've ever been lucky enough to walk into Bada, I can definitely say that is true. It feels just like a family. It's amazing there. Thank you so much. And then Kristen and Ben would love to hear your comments on this question as well, around what makes a good school.
I mean, I feel like you can't say it better than the students just did, right? Like they know the definition of a good school.
Perfect.
I agree with everything that they said. I think as an adult that is trying to make the best school possible for students, I think for me, it's just making sure that students have opportunities. I think it's making students that are prepared for whatever it is that's going to come next for them. I think traditionally schools have spent a lot of time telling kids what they should do when they get out of high school, right? Like you need to go to college and I think we've started to move away from that a bit. And we like to can it college and career readiness, right? I use the term all the time in my job. But what I really want students to have is to be prepared for whatever success looks like for them that comes next. At Boston Plan for Excellence, we define that as being at a family sustaining wage in the greater Boston area within 6 years. And however you get there or whatever that looks like, that's success for us. But I think students have different visions of what success is for them. And I just want them to graduate with the tools to be ready to do it and to feel confident and ready and excited. And I don't know traditionally that schools have done that for students. And I'll stop there.
So, I mean, I think the only thing I would add is that to do that, to think about what's next for a student, we need to be very thoughtful about where a student came from and what's in their background, what are they bringing to the table, what assets are they bringing to your school. And I think that that's a real important piece to pivot on. Yeah. And then the only other piece is to challenge the students to get to the place that they want to get. And I think that takes a lot of forms. And I think Kristen brought up sort of the more problematic form of us telling the students what they want to do. Mm-hmm. But I think it comes in a lot of forms of us starting to really suss out with the student where they want to go and challenge them to get there and get there the way that we know that they can. We don't get all of our students walking in saying, I want to be a doctor, get me there. That's just not how students are packaged. I think we need to be thoughtful about how students come to us and how we have to challenge them and give them those tools and what that looks like. And I think a lot of that comes from us understanding the student and really being thoughtful about who's in our building and why.
Well said, Ben. And one of the things that stood out to me of what you just shared was building upon students' assets. It's not just the getting to know, but using their assets to develop that pathway and challenging students to get there. So thank you so much. We have 2 more questions left. The next question, we're going to start with Morgan for this one, but how would you describe the needs of the students and educators and partners that you work with at this time?
Yeah, that's a big question. I would say that there are a lot of needs and a lot of differing needs for different members of all of those different communities. I think that one of the things that I always try to bring into the interactions that I have with folks is people need grace. Because although we are at a place in this COVID time that is hopefully becoming easier and less challenging is the hope, the truth is we've all experienced 2 years of trauma, students, parents, teachers, administrators, everybody. And that trauma affects us all differently. And I think, again, for me, always remembering that fact and bringing grace into the conversations that I have with folks, not taking stuff personally, but like people are coming from where they're coming from. And we need to honor that and respect that if we're really going to be able to like have partnership conversations that are effective. I think too that it's also so important to holistically, as much as we can, the needs that people have, and also the experiences that our teachers, students, administrators might be going through. Like, for example, we have faculty who teach at our school, but also with a couple of different other community music schools in the area. And when I'm thinking about that faculty member and my expectation of them and what they're navigating, I have to remember, oh, right, they work with us 2 to 3 days a week, but they work with another couple places a day a week. And all of that work for them is kind of combobulated and bouncing around. And I want to make sure that, again, I have empathy and grace as their supervisor to say, what should I realistically right now expect of you? Same things with students. I mean, we have students who, who because of like their AP schedules can't participate in orchestra in school, which is why they come to us. There are students who have career goals that they talk about in other spaces, but haven't had the opportunity to bring to us. And that's kind of how we're trying to open that door so we can understand the whole student, again, beyond what happens in their 30, 45 or hour-long lesson with their teacher. The other thing with in working in our school partnerships, and those of y'all that are working in schools, I send you all of my love and all of my good energy. I know that it's been a really, really difficult time for schools, and even whenever we are able to sit down and have a conversation with a partner, I really cherish that moment and that opportunity, because I recognize how many other demands you have on your time, and recognizing that, like, hey, let me bring it in this 30-minute conversation, because you only have 30 minutes and you need about 15,000 answers from me. That's something that I think is important to recognize in the needs of others right now.
Thank you, Morgan, for really recognizing, the grace, a human-centered approach, especially during these times, is just so critical and important. Completely agree with you there. Kristen?
Yeah, I think Morgan did a great job. One of the things that I'm often saying to teachers, our teachers are dealing with a lot this year. I mean, they deal with a lot every year. But I think coming back from a pandemic, as Morgan said, nobody's okay. Teachers aren't okay, administrators aren't okay, kids families aren't okay, right? And so when we were talking about trauma sensitive practices before we left for the pandemic, like, we should be talking about it way more now, and we're not actually. I think a lot of schools are focused on filling those academic gaps, but we should be front loading social emotional support for our students and our teachers, and making sure that, like, not only is there grace, but a large amount of understanding, and making sure we understand where people are coming from and try to unpack where people are coming from, because I think sometimes we forget, we get in the grind, we're trying to do the job, we're trying to hit a target, we're trying to, do the thing that we're being asked to do, and we let go of some of that. So I think this year, what is particularly hard is coming at this with everybody not being okay, everybody needing a little bit more grace and support and help, and trying to make sure that those that tend to hold those roles of being the ones that are the caretakers and always have been, those people that we most often lean on are also some of the most exhausted right now, because they're doing what they naturally do. And most of those people are teachers. It's why they go into the profession, right? It's why administrators go in the profession. And I think we have to be very careful that we're making sure people are okay. And so I think, like, when we're approaching, whether it's partners, whether it's students, whether it's teachers, whether it's peers on my admin team, it's very much like Morgan says, it's about grace. It's about asking questions. It's about trying not to make assumptions, and reminding ourselves that everybody has been through something, but there is an equitable distribution of how much people have been through, whether it's in the course of the pandemic or even before that.
Thank you, Kristen. And then BADA team. So Kristen, you just shared, lifting up that social and emotional support for not just students, but also staff, and just acknowledging that. And then there's no other school that I know that does that better than Bada. So quickly, Mariana, Antonio, Ben, would you have anything to add there? Thinking about the needs, so Mariana and Antonio, the needs of your peers, and Ben, if you could speak to the needs of students and educators in your building, and yourself too.
Okay, so another thing that I will add is like talking about the language, because I could see that the most of the students here are like Spanish speakers, or like people from other countries, like peers from other countries. So yeah, that's one of the biggest like things that you can see here. But even though that is like really hard to get this new language, because once you come here, so you had to do like a lot of things that you didn't used to do like in your home country. So all the teachers and all the staffs, and even all the students helps to figure that out. So yeah, I would say that that is really important. Also the language, like having all the support to improve that, because we are in a country where we had to speak another language, or do it for our dreams, our future, for continuing studying in college, and so that kind of things. And also I like when we were talking about like the social like support, like the emotional support. So I would say that is really important too, even more now, because since COVID, a lot of things change. So we had to like adapt to a new environment. So having that kind of support, emotional support, makes you feel better, because you don't know what is that person going through, or so I would say that emotional support is really important, because every peer, every student has their history. So that person comes from a different country, so that person has a history to tell. So that's really important.
Thank you so much, Mariana. And I'm sorry to cut this short, but we actually have everyone flooding back in to the main room. But thank you so much for that last response. So Mariana, Antonio, Ben, Morgan, Kristen, deep thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. I know